You ever stop and wonder how all this works? I mean, think about it. There are billions of devices online right now. How does your email find its way from, say, London to a friend's laptop in Tokyo? Or how does Netflix know exactly which TV to send your movie to? Well, the answer is the simple but totally brilliant invention that's basically the postal service for the entire internet.
And today, we're going to unpack the most fundamental piece of that whole system, the IP address.
Yeah, it really all boils down to that one question. How does your computer, just one in a sea of billions, find the exact server that's holding the website you want to see? And maybe more importantly, how does that server know how to get back to you? I promise, it's not magic. It's just a really clever system of unique identifiers. So, at its heart, an IP address, which stands for Internet Protocol Address, is, well, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a digital address. Think about it like this. Your house has a unique street address so the mail carrier can find it, right? It's the same idea online. Every single device, from servers to your smartphone, your laptop, even your smart fridge, if it's on the internet, it needs a unique IP address to send and receive information. That postal service analogy, it's the best way to think about this as we go. But, this system didn't just pop into existence. It was actually invented to solve a very real problem back when the internet was just getting started. So let's do a quick history lesson.
Okay, so picture this. It's the 1970s. You've got this thing called ARPANET, which was built to connect different research institutions. But here's the problem. All these different little networks couldn't talk to each other. They all spoke different languages. So these two visionaries, Vince Cerf and Robert Kahn, they came up with a universal language, a protocol called TCP/IP. And the IP part, that was the stroke of genius. It was the idea of giving every single device its own unique address. By 1983, this became the official standard. And that's what turned a bunch of separate networks into the single global internet we use today.
Now, this first version of addresses, called IPv4, was absolutely revolutionary. But it had one tiny, unforeseen flaw. The people who created it, brilliant as they were, just had no idea how massive the internet was going to get. Here's the number, just under 4.3 billion. That's the total number of addresses the original IPv4 system could ever create. Back in the 80s, that seemed like an infinite number. Who could possibly need more? But they couldn't have predicted that the internet wasn't just going to be for universities. It was going to be in our pockets, in our living rooms, on our wrists, everywhere. And this is what it looks like. A simple format, right? 4 blocks of numbers, each from 0 to 255. You've probably seen something like this if you've ever poked around in your router settings. But as the internet just exploded and every smartphone, TV, and laptop needed its own address, well, we started to run out fast. By the late 2010s, we were staring down a full-blown digital housing crisis. So what was the solution? Well, honestly, it's kind of mind-boggling. Look at this number. That's 340 undecillion. That's how many addresses are available in the new system, IPv6. To put that in perspective, it's a number so huge you could give trillions of IP addresses to every single person on Earth, and you wouldn't even make a dent. So yeah, the scarcity problem, solved. Forever. As you can see, the address itself looks a lot more complex. It uses letters and numbers in a way longer format. But that complexity is the whole point. It's what gives us that astronomical number of combinations. It basically future-proofs the internet, making sure there's infinite room to grow for all the smart devices and whatever comes next. Okay, so that's the big picture. But now let's bring it back home, to your own network, because this is where things get a little more interesting. See, you don't just have one IP address. You actually have a whole bunch of them. Let's break down the 2 main types you're using every single day. All right, let's go back to that office building analogy. The whole building has one main street address, right? That's your public IP. It's the single address the outside world sees, and it's given to you by your internet service provider. But inside that building, every employee has their own unique cubicle number. Those are your private IPs. Your router hands these out to your phone, your laptop, your TV, everything. In fact, you could probably find your device's private IP right now just by looking in the network settings on your computer or phone. So your router is basically the mail sorter for the office. It uses this really clever trick called Network Address Translation, or NAT, that lets all your different devices share that one single public IP. But what happens if the mail sorter gets confused and gives 2 devices the same cubicle number? Well, that's called an IP conflict, and it's a super common reason why your laptop might suddenly not be able to connect to the internet, even when your phone is working perfectly fine. Now, for most of us at home, That main public IP address is dynamic. That just means your ISP assigns it to you temporarily, and it can change every now and then. Businesses, on the other hand, often pay for a static IP that never changes, so their website server is always easy to find. But here's a cool little detail. What happens if your router, the thing that gives out all those private IPs inside your house, suddenly stops working? Well, your computer has a backup plan. It's called API-PA. Your machine will basically assign itself a special temporary address so it can at least still talk to, say, your printer on the local network, even if it can't get to the internet.
So, if your IP address is your passport to the internet, what kind of information does that passport actually show to all the websites you visit? Let's talk about your digital footprint. Okay, let's be super clear here. Your public IP address does not reveal your name, your exact street address, or your phone number, but it does give away your general location, usually your city or region, and who your internet service provider is. This is exactly how streaming services know to show you content that's only available in your country, or how a website can automatically show you the weather for your city. This quote really just nails it. An IP address is the bedrock of modern networking, but it's also a digital footprint left behind with every click. I mean, that's perfect, right? Every single time you go online, you're leaving this little footprint. It's a totally necessary part of how the internet functions, but it's also a piece of data that can be tracked and logged. And because it's a footprint, well, it can be exploited. Which brings us to the really important topic of security. So, what are the actual threats tied to your IP address? And more importantly, what can you do about them?
So, beyond advertisers tracking you or streaming sites blocking you based on your location, there are some more malicious threats. For example, an attacker could just flood your public IP with a ton of junk traffic, that's a DDoS attack, and basically kick you offline. It's less common, but a skilled hacker could also scan an IP address looking for weaknesses to try and get direct access to a network. This leads to the big question we always hear, especially from online gamers who hear people threatening to get your IP. So, should you actually be worried if someone has your IP address? What's the real danger?
Honestly, for the average person, the direct risk is pretty low. Someone knowing your public IP is not the same as them knowing your password or having your credit card details. But it is a piece of the puzzle about your online identity. So the takeaway here is don't panic, but it's definitely a good idea to protect it.
And the good news is it's pretty easy to hide it. The most common way is with a VPN, or a virtual private network. It basically encrypts all your traffic and routes it through a server somewhere else in the world. So to any website you visit, it looks like you're coming from that server's location, totally masking your real IP. For even more privacy, you have things like the Tor browser or simpler tools like proxy servers that also act as a go-between. So when you boil it all down, your IP address is what makes your entire digital life possible. It connects you to, well, everything. It's your ticket to get online, it's your return address for data, and it's your digital footprint, all wrapped into one. So the final question is, are you keeping that digital passport safe?